Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Trident Talks. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Harry Wetherald, who is the CEO and founder of Maze. Harry, nice to see you.
Hey, Sean.
Harry, just for people that maybe don't know who you are or who Maze are, I know you guys are very early stage, currently in build mode, doing some cool stuff. Would you mind giving everyone a brief intro, please?
Yeah, great. I'm Harry. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Maze. We are a less than a year old startup. So right at the start of our journey, we are building a completely AI-based product that essentially aims to take cloud vulnerabilities, investigate them, triage them, and resolves them. The idea is that the customers we work with have this kind of like automated security engineer that they can deploy across every single vulnerability in their environment to get a full understanding of which ones matter, and then fix the ones that do. So that's us. We're, as I said, new startup, relatively early on, but already working with a number of big organizations. On me, before I did this, I worked in product management in cybersecurity. My last role was with Tessian, which was a kind of machine learning based email security company where I led the product management team for a number of years.
Nice. Tessian, huge success story, and you were a big part of that. Sure, some fun times there. It was like massive growth, right? During the, I'm sure you saw the business change a lot.
Some fun times, exactly. Yeah, it was one of those companies that was like the last generation of machine learning, right? There was this kind of like generation of machine learning based companies that came out in like 2015, 16, 17, that kind of era. So it was one of those kind of one of the early applications of machine learning to security, really, which was a lot of fun and hopefully gives us some good lessons to bring into this one.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about AI. Obviously, running this series specifically on AI and security and speaking to a bunch of different founders or executives within AI security companies from different sides of the fence. Um, you blog a lot, and I've obviously had access to some of your blogs. I've read them, and I know that you talk a lot about AI and security and the good and the bad and where it's going. Um, what's your view on like AI at the moment, where we see it? Do you like organizations using it more to enhance? Are people trying to replace? Which direction do you see it going in?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think everyone's kind of in experimentation mode, at least with this latest generation of AI. So everything that kind of comes 2022 and beyond, kind of chat GPT and afterwards is probably the best way of putting it, which is these kind of large language models that can do a lot more than the prior generations of AI models that we had in the past. But yeah, I think it's still even now, 2, 3 years on, I think a lot of people are just kind of in experimentation mode still. You have people trying to kind of like build and hack together things in house that you're starting to see more and more of now, or you've got kind of early vendors like ourselves who have kind of been building companies from the ground up with AI, but it's still very, very early on in their kind of life. So I don't think anyone's really seen how this is gonna play out fully in practice yet. But on my side, I don't see it necessarily as like a one-to-one replacement of the work we do today. 100% AI has the capability, either as it is today or how it will be in the next few years, to replace some of the work that humans are currently doing. But if you look at the average security team today, the number one complaint almost all of them will be we don't have enough people, or we're
Yeah.
doing too much kind of like toil, like low value work. Like the thing we heard all the time when we were speaking to people before we started our company was, I just feel like a project manager. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm just like shuffling stuff around, chasing people, looking into like, pretty low level things. And a lot of those people aren't necessarily having a great time, but they also feel like they're way too stretched to get the things they really want to get done. So in that context, if you think about what AI can do, there's immediately so many things we can do to just free up today's teams to not feel like they're so drastically under resourced, and so that they can do more of like what they would see as the core of their job rather than the kind of like project management parts of their job. Um, then if you look ahead a little bit, like mid to long term, the thing I think people often always forget when they think about, like, they look at a piece of work a human does today, then they look at what AI can do, and they say, great, well, AI is going to go and automate that, so we don't need that person anymore. But in security, at least, it's never that simple because the attackers on the other side of the fence all have the access to the same technology. So when we
Yeah.
go, cool, like, all these like low level SOC alerts today, or all these vulnerabilities today, or whatever the work might be that we're currently doing, AI is just going to like automate all of that. But if the attackers get two, three, four, five, 10 times more effective because of AI on their side, we can't just do the same work we're doing today, but automated. Otherwise, attackers are going to find it easier and easier and easier to get in. So I think you've kind of got this equilibrium that we reach where it's like, attackers are able to kind of do way more complex attacks, way easier, way cheaper, way more widespread. That then changes the nature of the work security teams need to do. So they still need to automate away a lot of what they're currently doing today, but then they maybe need to step up to doing slightly higher level, slightly more strategic stuff to stop those more advanced attacks getting through that are likely to come. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a case of we're going to replace every single security job anytime soon, but I do think we can probably free people up from some of the kind of like more toil, like low level stuff that they're doing today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm very much in that camp as well, like the enhanced camp as opposed to replace. I think you still always need a human element, like you said, right, to keep one step ahead of the threat actors and the hackers on the other side. What I do think we will see from my perspective, I spoke to someone about this the other day, is I think we'll maybe see different jobs, like in 18 months, 2 years, come into the fold where people are there to make sure that the AI that's being used within a security vendor is doing the right things, as opposed to L1 SOC analysts. Maybe we replace that with AI engineers that are coming in and fine tuning products and stuff like that. So I think we'll see a slight. I think there'll still be demand for people. It'll just be different types of skills. And maybe that's people's route into the industry, right? As opposed to going in as a low level tester or a L1 SOC analyst, maybe it's different routes in.
Definitely. It's a bit like with, we always say this about software engineers as well at the same time, where you've got like more junior software engineering tasks today getting automated more and more and more with AI. And we always say, like, my advice to people who are kind of early on in their career doing that or in security would be go and become amazing at using the AI based tools. Because if
Yeah,
you can become amazing at that, you almost could leapfrog the people above you, the senior people above you. If they're not as good at using those tools, if that becomes the most important part of the job next, it could actually be the thing that like catapults you into being into kind of moving more quickly with your career. So I think any junior security people right now that are worried about this kind of trend happening, I'd say go off and become amazing at using AI. And it's
yeah,
probably the thing that will help like catapult you forward from here.
yeah, for sure. No, I agree with you. And look, just to finish, I am probably quite a big talking point, and I know this is something I talk about all the time, but without using too much bad language, there's a lot of nonsense, right, around AI and security. And look, machine learning's been around for forever, and it's what I see nowadays is I see a lot of organizations putting AI in front of their name or powered by AI. And what you guys are doing is from the ground up, right? You're genuinely building something and you're using AI to do that, and you're fine tuning that and building it yourselves. I read one of your blogs, and I know that you feel quite strongly about this as well, right? But I'm keen to get your take on it. Like, how are companies really using AI, and who's not, and who's kind of jumping on the bandwagon and trying to use it as a buzzword, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Let's not
such an
name
interesting
names
topic.
because we don't want
Yeah,
to
no,
we
no,
don't want to cause any
I
arguments.
won't, don't, yeah, don't worry, don't worry. So I mean, as you said, it's nothing new, right? If you actually went back to like an RSA or an InfoSec 5 years ago and you walk around the hall, you'd see the word AI in a lot of places, or machine learning, or some kind of variant of the same idea. Um, it's just in the last few years, as AI in like the broader world has become more and more of a hot topic, it's kind of just amped everything up. To almost every vendor now will say something about AI. So if every single vendor is saying they're using AI, then it ceases to become a useful thing to say on its own because it's no longer a differentiating factor. It's just what everyone is saying. The biggest kind of thing I would say, and I think people are pretty savvy about this kind of stuff nowadays, but I think the biggest thing I would always say is try and understand how central AI is to a product and when that company started building their product. And you'll probably have a pretty good sense of how kind of like central AI is to the story, all right, for them. And the most important thing is you can have some great products that don't use AI at all, right?
Yeah,
But they might be saying they do, but they could still be great products. But they're also going to be kind of like capped in terms of what they can do. They're never going to do something revolutionary that you haven't seen before because they're not using any kind of new technology. But they might be still be good products. But the best ways to look at it, in my opinion, I'd say look at when the product was first built, right? And if the core of the product was first built 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it probably wasn't built around kind of like modern machine learning, even like the kind of stuff we've had for like the last 10 years. And probably what's happened over the years is they've kind of like layered in new features on top of that existing product. But the existing product was probably just kind of more traditional software. Then if the product was built, let's say like 5 years ago, so pre ChatGPT, pre large language models, pre this like latest wave of AI, the core of that product was definitely not built with large language models, right? It was built with maybe it was built with more traditional machine learning, or maybe it was just more built with rules and kind of other ways of making decisions in the product, which is pretty typical. It might still be a perfectly good product. It just won't really heavily rely on AI to do the things that it does. Now, people might say, well, yeah, couldn't they in the last 2 years have like reinvented it all and kind of rebuilt it around AI? And the answer technically is yes, but almost never does that happen. Like almost
Yeah.
always what you see is these big platforms, they've built up a lot of product over the last 5, 10 years. They're not just going to remove it all overnight and
Right.
start again.
Yeah, just for the
So
sake of
like
AI. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly what they do instead is they typically like within like 3 to 6 month increments, they want to add features. There's some kind of push from above to add like AI based features. And so they build the kind of like smallest thing possible in
Yeah.
that 3 to 6 month increment where they can say, cool, we now have an AI feature or we have some kind of AI product or whatever it might be. You saw this like massively in 2022, 2023, where a lot of vendors basically said, cool, what's like the simplest thing we could do with AI? And it was basically they have some kind of query engine in their product. They wrote an AI kind of like box on top of that query engine, and you could come in and say, hey, tell me about this, and it would convert it to a query, and then it would go query the logs, right? And it was like such a minimal amount of value, but it helped everyone go, cool, we now have an AI analyst in the product. But like buyers and customers see it, and they're just so underwhelmed by it so instantly. So yeah, those are just a few things you can use to try and understand like who's doing what. Ultimately, all software should become AI centric in the next 5 years. It's just so powerful now, you almost can't not. It doesn't mean that today's products that don't use it are bad products. It just means that they're going to be like limited in how far they can go versus the ones that are kind of like truly very AI centric. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where it all goes in the next couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of feel like it's more of like a egotistical, materialistic stance from some of these companies that, have been around for maybe 10 years that have never had an AI centric piece within their product. The reason they do it is to kind of stay relevant or feel like they need to do it to stay relevant. And
Yeah,
maybe they don't, right? But there's so much talk around AI at the moment. And I mean, you see it at RSA, right? It's just all everyone was talking about AI insecurity is everywhere. And I think that has to be the reason why, along with other reasons as well, right? But I think 9 times out of 10, that's why companies are doing it. And I'm the same as you. Like I've got customers that have added an AI piece to their product, and it's not really enhanced what they do. They do some really good stuff, and it's just what's the point in a
yeah,
roundabout way. But no,
yeah.
look, good talking points. I think we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you joining today. It'd be interesting to see how you guys progress and grow over time. I know you look year old, recently out of stealth. Everyone keep an eye out for you guys and wishing you all the best.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cheers. Thanks for having me on, Sean.